Here we are on this show talking about television. Once again, man, it must really be summer, but we talk about this specific aspect of television during the season as well. Here we are talking about Big Noon Kickoff and Big Noon Saturday, Fox's premier Big Ten college football product. At a recent press conference, Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork talked about how he was really working to get more night games for Ohio State and how the Buckeyes were carrying the brand of Big Noon Saturday. I want to play this soundbite because it leads into maybe some of the points that I want to talk about here as this segment progresses.
Really started the conversation back in the fall, as we were forecasting out and knowing that we had a lot of noon games last year, just forecasting out, okay, we got Texas, big time game, who knows what would happen. We didn't know what postseason would look like back in November, right? So just mapping out, okay, that's going to be a big game. And look, I think our program, our fans deserve some marquee night games. So we started having that conversation. Texas in the contract, it goes both ways. They have the ability to approve or not if the game moves off of a Saturday. We asked them. I don't blame them. But those conversations started. We worked with Fox. They were understanding. But really, at the end of the day, there's no flexibility in the contracts. Fox bought the noon window. CBS bought the afternoon window. And NBC has the night window. And then the Big Ten Network and Peacock, layer into that. So what we need more flexibility. Can that happen anytime soon? I don't know. But I think every program should deserve the right to have way more flexibility. We have carried the day for Big Noon. There's no question about it. If you look at the viewership. So we understand why Fox went with Big Noon. We understand why we're picked all the time.
Whether you're a fan like you and me, whether you're an athletic director like Ross there, whether you're a head coach, whether you're a player, whether you're a school, whether you're administration, no matter what you are within this little bubble, if you're tired of Big Noon, if you're tired of your team playing 6, 7, 8, 9 games on Big Noon, too damn bad. That's the world that we've signed off on here in the Big Ten Conference. Fox pays the most money. They own a majority share of the Big Ten Network. They are the premier television partner within the Big Ten Conference. I'm not going to lie, and this might seem a little harsh. It might seem a little blunt. It's really hard for me to feel sorry for Ohio State. It's really hard for me to feel sorry for Penn State. Even we didn't hear as much complaining against Michigan when they were really carrying the load during that 2022, during that 2023 time. But it's really hard for me to feel sorry for these schools and these teams when they're raking in tens of millions of dollars every single year. You are able to rake in that much money, to be able to build new facilities, to be able to continue to expand your athletic department, not just football, but your other sports in your athletic department. You are able to do that. A big part of that is due to Fox's investment into that noon window. Now, I'm not saying, hey, you're able to build a new volleyball facility because of Big Noon on Fox, but what I am saying is that they are putting a lot of money, they are putting a lot of investment into that product. When you saw the contract, you knew what you were getting yourself into. You knew what this exactly what was going to happen for the Big Ten Conference. So it should not be a surprise to anybody right now. Now, the big thing that Ross really talked about was flexibility in all of that. And that is one big thing that I certainly want to talk about as it pertains to how this contract is going to look in 2030 and beyond. But I think when you're specifically looking at it from an Ohio State point of view, and really Penn State has been talked about, but really Ohio State I think is the main talking point that we got to be able to chat about. I think when it specifically comes to Big Noon, because of the conference's rule where West Coast teams cannot host 9 a.m. kickoffs for these Fox Big Noon broadcasts. I think as much as Ohio State doesn't want this, as much as their fans don't want Michigan to be good, Penn State maybe to be good. I think the best thing for all three of those teams, because let's call a spade, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. Those are the banner carriers for the noon window. Those are the banner carriers for Big Noon Saturday and Big Noon Kickoff. Big Noon Saturday is going to be most successful when those three teams are most successful. If I'm the Ohio State Buckeyes, because that's really what we're focused in on here right now, if I'm them, I need Michigan to be a perennial 10-win team, right? I need Penn State to continue to keep on doing what they're doing. So maybe they can take some of the big noon games that maybe otherwise I would have been on last season. I think when you look towards last season, of course, Michigan being down didn't exactly help Ohio State to get maybe more of these games off of the big noon Saturday, certainly in the future. But as long as those checks clear, you got to do what the networks want to do, because that's what we've built for ourselves. You made your bed. Now you got to lay in it. You collect those checks every single month, every single year, and you've got all of this money flowing around, and it's important now more than it is ever with revenue sharing now. Okay, you collect all of these checks, you got to pay the price. If that's a sacrifice, you got to know what's coming in on the back end, and having a lot of your games at noon certainly is the result. Now, that's the reality of the situation. What would I like to see? Yes, I want to see a lot of diversity. I want to see different teams on Big Noon. I want to see different teams on CBS. We talked about how CBS maybe getting a little bit of the short end of the stick. I want to see bigger and badder games in the mid-afternoon. NBC got a really good game last year with Ohio State and Oregon. They get a really good game this year with Oregon and Penn State. That Penn State-Ohio State game, I think, is going to be very interesting, because Ohio State and Texas is already going to be at noon on Fox. And if that game is in Columbus, Ohio State and Penn State this year, if that's on Fox again, this is going to get magnified. This is going to get magnified once again, and it's going to be an issue within the season in the month of November for the Ohio State Buckeyes. But I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in 2030. That's when we're going to get a new television deal. Are the schools going to push back on this? Are they going to create some flexibility? Now, I'm about solutions. I don't think you're going to get into a situation where NBC and Fox are going to trade. It's like, well, now NBC, they've all kind of branded the Big Noon Kickoff, Big Ten Saturday night. Like, they've done a great job, and I love the branding. I love the way the schedule is set up. So you're not switching. You're not doing Big Noon Kickoff on NBC one week, and you're not doing Big Ten Saturday night on Fox a certain week, although that would be interesting. It would be pretty interesting to be able to see that happen. But I think the time slots and the networks are certainly staying as is. I think one thing that if I'm some of the big carriers in the Big Ten, and that's Ohio State, that's Penn State, right? Those are some of the schools that are maybe going to be throwing their weight around in some of these conference negotiations. I would think of something in this next contract where maybe like you can play a maximum of like 4 games in a window, in a time slot on a big network every year. So, for example, if you're Ohio State in 2030 in this new contract, I don't think they're really going to be able to amend the contract as it currently sits. But if you're sitting there to renegotiate this thing in 2030, Ohio State, okay, they played their game against Michigan 3 other times. They could play on the Fox Big Noon window. That creates some more diversity where you got to move around some of these games. And I think it could create some certainly bigger games for CBS and some bigger games for NBC and get a lot more diversity. Now, you might think, well, Fox now doesn't have that number one pick, and Fox might kind of sit and say, well, we're still investing this large amount of money. Okay, shouldn't we be able to pick? And that's certainly something that they're going to have. I think what it comes down to is like if Fox, CBS, NBC were all paying the same amount of money, I think this would be a pretty even draft, and I don't think that this would be as much of an issue. But because Fox pays so much more in the Big Ten TV deal, it becomes a little bit more of an issue. But kind of getting back to my solution, where you could have a maximum of a team playing 4 times in a current window, I think it creates some diversity where maybe, hey, Fox might say, well, okay, we don't get so much top picks at the end. We might kind of decrease our value a little bit, well, maybe some other networks might increase their value a little bit, knowing that they might get a little bit better games. So do I think that that's going to be something that's going to happen in the future? No, I do not think that's going to be something that's going to happen in the future. But there might be a point where, like, if Ohio State plays another 9 games or whatever on Big Noon, or 8 games or whatever it is, and Penn State, and you have all these games at noon, I think there might be a little bit of a movement within the conference to be like, hey, let's figure out some flexibility. I don't care what it's got to be. Let's just figure out some flexibility to maybe trade some things around so we can maybe get some night games. Like, I will say this in Ohio State's defense. I said at the beginning, hey, it's hard to feel sorry for you, but I will say this in their defense. They played one night game against Western Michigan. There should be a lot more diversity. Like, you should play noon games, you should play mid-afternoon games, and you should play night games. I think that was the really fun part about this Big Ten TV deal. Now you're stuck in one window. I think, and we know why fans don't like this, for an 11 a.m. kickoff. I mean, you're getting in there at 9 a.m., at 10 a.m., and you're not able to enjoy the whole day as a fan at the stadium. As a viewer here in the Central Time Zone, I like it. It really fits into my schedule certainly really well. So I'm a big fan of that and having the biggest game of the day on right away and not having to wait until primetime. But I think the big thing is diversity. I think the big thing is flexibility that I think the Big Ten needs to look for in the next TV deal. But as it stands right now, folks, you got what you got. You get what you get. Collect those checks. Smiles and nods, but maybe on the inside saying, hey, we'd like some change. We'll see if we get it when we get to the next Big Ten TV deal.